Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this and present a topic which is very close to my heart, the need for education in regards to the Vanaprastha Ashram. Because I think we have to clearly understand that there is a tremendous lack of training and education in this importance of this ashram. And we can almost say there is no deeper understanding of this crucial phase in life, which is so important to, prepare ourselves to go back to Godhead. And as a result of that, we can almost say Vanaprastha Ashram is not established. It's not existing. So, and this relates very clearly to the topic of culture, because a non-devotee's attitude towards old age and elderly people is very different than a devotee's attitude towards old age and elderly people. So a non-devotee, the attitude towards elderly people of society is basically neglect. The elderly people are seen as a burden. They're pushed aside into old age homes. And the expectation on old age and retirement is basically that it is a last chance to one more time enjoy to the maximum. And the expectation is a comfortable life in leisure, surrounded by family members, by charming grandchildren. So that's kind of the outlook of a non-devotee. But then the attitude and outlook of a devotee towards old age and elderly people very different. In fact, it is completely opposite. So there, elderly people are treated with respect, with inquiry, because the understanding is there. They have so much life experience and wisdom. And the mood is there that we serve them in humility and we care for them. And there is a sense of gratitude there because they're leaving us so much, which we can use now to further practice our Krishna consciousness and preach. So, and there, we want to deepen and internalize our spiritual practice. So, and increase our dependence on the Lord and his devotees. And we, for that, we embrace tapasya. So not, a comfortable life and leisure, but renunciation, tapasya. And the idea is there that we're meant to detach ourselves from the charming grandchildren, which does not, of course, mean that we cannot have contact with them, but without attachment and too much emotional involvement. So, the understanding is there. We have to break this attachment to the family members. Otherwise, there's a risk to take birth again. So now, let us understand that the 4 ashrams are actually Krishna's perfect system to prepare us for going back to Godhead. And each ashram gives stability and harmony in this material world. And if we are situated in each ashram, and each ashram also has its purifying duties, and it actually gives protection through these purifying duties. And it is in this way the perfect system to prepare us for death, for going back to Godhead. So now, interestingly, the brahmachari ashram sets really the foundation to the grihastha ashram. So a good brahmachari will also be a good grihastha. And a good brahmachari after the grihastha ashram will very naturally move on to the vanaprastha ashram because he's got that taste from tapasya, from deep absorption, which he experienced in his brahmachari life. So that taste is there, the memories are there. So then it will be very natural to move on to the Vanaprastha ashram. And another point is also that the grihastha ashram actually sets the foundation to the Vanaprastha ashram. Because if our family life actually was an ashram, meaning Bhagavatam, holy name, has to be the center of our family life, otherwise it's not an ashram. So, but if our family life was an ashram, then the necessary purification and spiritual maturity will be there to move on to the renounced phase of life. But if our family life was not an ashram, then that maturity and purification will not be there. So Vanaprastha ashram, not just a question of age, but spiritual maturity and purification, which we receive when we actually mold our family life into an ashram. So now, I have to add, I have actually a 15-hour course on this topic, and I'm facing the challenge here to summarize a 15-hour course in 15, 20 minutes. So I'm trying my best, and I'm sorry if I have to rush through things a little bit. And let me share one little quote from 7th Canto, 12th chapter, the summary. There Prabhupada says, after the Grihastha ashram is another ashram known as the Vanaprastha, which is midway between Grihastha and Sannyas. So this is a very nice explanation, a very short definition of what the Vanaprastha ashram is. And we can accept the mood and the underlying principles of the Vanaprastha ashram, and we can apply them wherever we may live. So, Vanaprastha doesn't mean we have to go to the forest, but we are simply extricating the underlying principles, and they can be applied in New York or Sydney or wherever it may be. So one of the main principles is, of course, no more sex life, and the worldly and family duties, they're naturally reducing anyway. And when we strive for this Vanaprastha ashram, we will more consciously reduce them, our involvement in family duties, work, business, and so on. And we do that in order to increase our absorption in spiritual practice. So we increase austerity. We are actually minimizing comfort and material attachments. We're switching from external activities and achievements to internal activities and achievements. So this is a very important point that we have to, because external achievements, they are more satisfying to the false ego. So we have to gradually let go of them and switch towards internal activities and achievements, because they are satisfying for the soul. So unless we make the switch voluntarily, then a health crisis will force us. And then we may face a vacuum there. We will maybe fall into some kind of midlife crisis, some depression. Oh, now nobody needs me anymore, and so on. So we have to build up a rich internal spiritual life. So then we have something to fall back on. And best to make this switch voluntarily rather than waiting until the body forces us. So in Vanaprastha ashram ultimately also means we are increasing our dependence on the Lord, right? And we delegate our responsibilities to the younger generation and allowing them to take charge. So again, that's a very important point. We will get back to that later. And husband and wife, they spend more time either together or separately in the holy dham, serving at a temple, preaching. So that it can have a variety of forms, how we actually practically live it. This depends on our natures, our abilities, and so on. So there's a lot of misconception in our society, unfortunately, that Vanaprastha ashram means husband puts on saffron and walks out at night. But this is irresponsibility in the name of Vanaprastha ashram. No, it's a team thing. Husband and wife work together and gradually they do things more separately, give each other more space. And this should be actually the natural tendency after having been married for many years. So it is not artificial. So, and of course, the Vanaprastha ashram is a new challenge in life. And it has to be accepted under guidance of more experienced devotees who have already some experience in mastering this challenge. Very natural, right? That we take guidance of a Vanaprastha couple who helps us to move forward in this direction. So now in general, the most valuable duty and contribution of the Vanaprasthas is actually that they share their life experience. They have accumulated so much wisdom, so many realizations, and they're meant to pass down that life experience, also the values and the knowledge they should pass down and to the younger generation, and they give shelter and guidance to them. You see, they serve as mentors, actually. That's the main and foremost contribution of this ashram. And because this mentorship understanding is not so much established in ISKCON, so if the highly important contribution is not valued of the ashram, then how can the ashram actually manifest if we don't value the contribution? So, and of course, if the Vanaprasthas actually serve in that capacity, that immensely supports and protects actually the sannyas ashram, right? Yeah, so now let me briefly touch upon the effects which it has on our society if this ashram is not being properly established. So our ISKCON communities, they miss out on the wealth of life experience. There's so much unused potential there, right? Because all these senior grihastha couples, they have so much to share, and we are simply missing out completely. They're sitting idle. Very often I observe this on my travels. So, and also the younger generation also misses out because they don't receive this valuable guidance, and therefore they run with their family problems to their sannyasi gurus, and that burdens them. They're not even meant to get involved in family issues. So the Vanaprasthas, they have the experience, they should guide them, right? So, and the devotees, because the ashram is not established, the devotees may remain attached to their positions, to their titles, and they're not handing over the responsibilities to the next generation. And this invites stagnation on all levels, on the individual level of the senior person, on the level of the younger generation surrounding them, and project at large. It becomes stagnant because every generation has their valuable contribution to make in Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. So if this handing over does not take place, then things become stagnant. So in the senior devotees, miss out on cultivating the mood of renunciation and detachment from deeper family ties. And this entangles them, and therefore there is a risk to take one more time birth in the material world, and that we want to avoid. So we could, basically, the essence is we could have so much more senior full-time devotees and preachers if we establish this Vanaprastha ashram more clearly. And if young devotees don't receive this education in this regard, then they will not plan their life accordingly. They may enter married life when they're 48, starting off with babies. The men, ladies, of course, a little earlier, hopefully. But with 48, we are not meant to start with family life. But this happens so often because this education is not given. So ultimately, establishing the Vanaprastha ashram is all a matter of educating devotees, systematic educating and training them, because of this different worldview which we are surrounded by through materialistic culture. We don't so easily naturally move into the opposite mood of facing old age. So now very quickly, and this will be basically my last points of this humble little presentation, there is three main and foremost principles of the Vanaprastha ashram, which again, we simply extract. We imagine living in the forest. There is very simple, practical principles which we can apply wherever we are. And it is a gradual process to implement them in our life. It's a question of meditation. That's why it's good to get this education at young age, not only when we are 50 or 55, then almost a little late to meditate on these things. So principle number one is simplifying our life. Yes, we live simple. We simplify our environment. So, and we do that by simplifying our surroundings. We're keeping only the absolutely necessary things to keep body and soul together. We imagine living in Vrindavan in a room, simple little room. So there's not that much fancy furniture there and lounges and decoration and so just simplifying. And we do this practically by simply getting rid of many household things which are not really required, which we have accumulated. Household life, people accumulate so much stuff, So we give them in charity to the young grihastas who start off their grihasta life. Because all items which we are attached to, they occupy some little space in our mind. So it's actually very liberating to free ourselves from so many things which we have collected, And we will have to leave everything behind anyway. So better voluntarily rather than being forced by death, right? So like that, we get the benefit and joy of giving in charity to the young generation. So that's principle number one, simplifying our surroundings. So then principle number two is simplify our external appearance. And this is especially important, of course, for us ladies, because female body brings along more bodily identification because we are meant to bring color and beauty into life. That's why we like to make ourselves pretty and decorate ourselves. But that has to be reduced and given up ultimately in Vanaprastha ashram. So that means we simplify our dress. Gradually, we give up wearing makeup and ornaments. We go more in subdued colors and gradually into white with a border. That's Vanaprastha life. But widow is no border. It's just white. So, and this has to be gradually and internally cultivated. It's not simply a matter of externally accepting it. Otherwise, it becomes just another fashion. So we don't want that. It has to be, matching to the internal mood. And that reduces immensely our bodily concept, gross and subtle also, because fashion is very much also can feed the false ego and so on. So it's actually natural because our body gets less and less materially attractive anyway and ultimately falling apart. So it is actually Krishna's system, to cultivate bodily detachment. So no need to artificially try and make the body look young, coloring the hair, anti-wrinkle creams, face lift, and all this kind of thing. Devotees don't get into these things, but actually, believe it or not, I have met devotees who do get into cosmetic surgery. Oh my God, all for preaching. No, let the wrinkles come. It's good for preaching. Then people take us more seriously when the hair is a little grey and so on, So, and for men, of course, there is also the idea there to simplify their externals. And that includes also reducing attachment to gadgets, fancy watches, aftershave, whatever their attachment may be, or also fancy clothing. Some men like to dress up in fancy quarters and all that. So for men, it is also there, but I dare say for women, it is more prominent. Yeah, so that's the second principle, simplifying our external appearance. So now the third and last principle is we simplify our eating. And many people say that's the toughest, because the tongue always wants to enjoy. But again, our digestion becomes weaker anyway. Our body is not designed to enjoy the tongue. Anybody over 60 or even 55 knows that very clearly. So it's Krishna's system to give up this desire to enjoy the tongue. And otherwise, if we don't do this, we become massively overweight in old age because we're not burning it up so much anymore. And we may get sick. So better to do this voluntarily and cultivate the internal mood. So, and gradually the body will fall apart. We will lose control over all the bodily functions. And we have to accept the service and help from the devotees around us. So this immensely dissolves the false ego and the controlling propensity. So, and all that is meant to actually deepen our spiritual practice, our chanting, our hearing, so that we are ready to go home back to Godhead. Okay, so let us see.
As to say, may the words come true, that we do become ready to go back home, back to Godhead. There is a question.
Yes.
What age for Vanaprastha Ashram?
Well, in the handouts, which you may have, or you have the link to download, there I have included a lot of quotes, because Prabhupada, again and again, there's so many quotes in the Bhagavatam where he says 50, 50, 50, and sometimes he says sooner or later or as soon as possible when a person reaches 50. So, but that only works out if we accept, Krishna's recommendations how to go through the other ashrams. That, the system is that around a lady should get married around 18 or even earlier, a man between 25, 27, 28, something like that. So if we arrange our life like that, then the kids will be practically grown up when we are 50, And at 50, I'm 62 now, so at 50 you still have some energy to serve and do things and absorb ourselves, So that's the age, and Prabhupada says, before we become invalid, that's the whole idea. Before we become invalid, we leave home every now and again, go traveling, go here, go there, come back. So it's a gradual thing, But 50, Prabhupada always sets this mark of 50,
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so devotees, we just heard from Devaki Mataji about the importance of Vanaprastha Ashram. The previous speaker spoke about, Krishnendra Prabhu spoke about how to handle adolescence. Obviously, it would be nice if we had more speakers speaking also about Grihastha Ashram, and we may have that in the future.